So at some point you all decide to go to law school, but you're not using your law degrees in the traditional sense that most people would see it as a practicing lawyer. So tell me how law school and law enforcement work together for you, Lisa.
Okay. Sort of like Chief Tucker, I wanted to be a police officer, and I also had this dream, I guess, of being an attorney. So I fulfilled that, but I don't really use it. I find that it helped me become more structured and more goal-oriented, and much to the chagrin of my officers and everyone who knows me, I'm actually just I analyze things to death, to the point sometimes that I actually drive myself crazy.
Yeah, I've been there too.
As foolish as that sounds.
Nope.
And there's no simple answer to a question anymore. I mean, life has changed drastically in that aspect. But I took what I learned at Mass School of Law and also in my other schooling and what I continue to learn to just form a basis for how I go about my daily activities, my job as a police chief, but just how I do things. It certainly has changed the way I look at things.
And the law degree must be pretty valuable for your positions, because we have 11 police chiefs across the country that have law degrees from Mass School of Law, and in fact are in that top position. I mean, you must have, from the time you decided to go to college and finish the rest of it, you must have just been in school virtually all your life here.
Yeah, the running gag in my house is that I actually, I actually, when I finished up at MSL, I'm online one day and I see the fact that George Washington University is doing online courses, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. So I type out this, fill out the form and everything, and that came in the mail, and that was a proverbial pipe bomb with my wife.
Jen didn't take it well?
No, you would have thought that was another woman's phone number that she found. It was, I am not going through any more school. It was, I finished with the police academy, and it was about 6 months later I started taking classes at night, and basically it was about a decade straight that I was in school. I went through, I got my bachelor's degree, then I decided to get my master's degree, and once I was done with that, I decided to jump in with MSL as well, and it was a very nice roller coaster ride.
And how do you think it's improved you, or not improved you as a police chief?
I can honestly say I don't think I'd be here without it. I don't think I'd be sitting in the chair in the office that I'm sitting in without the degree from MSL. It helps to round you out. It helps to it's hard to explain from the time that you start, especially law school, to the time that you finish law school. Your whole way of thinking, analyzing, and structuring things, like Lisa says, changes. It's you all of a sudden you now have a beginning, a middle, and an end to every single situation, and then the multiple variables that come into play in each one, and then how to navigate each one and to get down to that to the bottom line. It's it's been invaluable. It really has.
Now, Kenny, you did it in even as difficult as Ron's journey is. You were commuting 2 hours from New Haven to get to law school as well, so you must have really, really wanted it.
Yes, I really wanted it, and I do want to make the statement that I didn't come onto the department with a degree. I was in college, and I had to, college or this $40,000 job back then, so I chose the job. But it took 7 years to get a bachelor's degree because the rotating of the shifts and so forth, and then I went to get my master's degree, and then I decided to go to law school. For me, it has helped me think better. Okay, it was one of two plans. One, I wanted to become a police chief, but it's very rare that you become a chief. And I was in a big department, 500 cops, and to become a chief is pretty difficult. So my secondary plan was I was just going to practice law. So I became a chief, and even as a police lieutenant, before I became a chief, it has just helped me to think better. There's simple things that we now see as MSL graduates that other people don't see. I'll have conversations with my commanding staff, and they'll say, well, let's do this, Chief. And I'll just pick up on it. We can't do that. I tell the town manager, as I told in New Haven, the mayor, I've saved you thousands of dollars of money, of money for not having to go to your legal counsel.
Right, there's probably no doubt about that if you think that, your legal training, if it's not just not going to legal counsel, but likely in advising your officers, you've saved yourself exposure to God knows how many civil suits as a result of practices that might have gone unchecked by someone who didn't have a law degree and have some legal training.
I was told by one of the members of the Board of Selectmen. He said, "Oh yeah, we got a 2-for-1. We got an extra town council, and we also got a police chief at the same thing, at the, bargain basement price."
That's true, isn't it? So Kenny, I interrupted you before you finished.
Searching for police chief.
You were saving the money.
Police chief jobs, some of these jobs said Juris Doctor preferred. And you can see where I'm sure everyone on this panel will agree that back in the day, cops could go out and do a lot of things, right? There was no legal ramifications. Now this is a different time.
Yep.
We have lawsuits flooding in to cities and towns. So I think the demand now is that our chief executives in policing must have some type of legal background.
Paul?
I have a couple of distinct memories that really still jump out at me and will stay with me. One is a conversation I had with my wife when I was thinking about going to law school. And I said, I really want to go to law school. I said, I really want to go. And I was in my mid to late 30s at the time. And my wife asked me why. And I said, well, I just think it'll help me on my job. It'll help me further my career. And she said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, well, I'm going to be 40 when I graduate. And she said, well, you'll either be 40 with or without a law degree. And that actually spoke to me. And the second distinct memory I had is my very first night at Mass School of Law was orientation. And I looked at Brian Gilligan, who's a captain on Sellon PD. We went to school together. And I said, Brian, what are we doing here? He said, what do you mean? I said, my son's playing an all-star baseball game tonight. It was August 13th, 1997. I said, it's the first game he's playing that I'm going to miss. I don't know if I can do this. And it was one step at a time. It wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon. But it was a great race to run, and it was something that, we have it. I think that now that I have this degree, and it's really dawned on me a few times that I think that there is among the public, there's a respect for what it takes to get through law school. Whatever people think of law school or medical school, there's a certain respect that if you reach the finish line, that you finish law school, you get that Juris Doctor, you pass the bar, I think it brings with you some respect and some credibility. One other story that I have, a dear friend of mine who's a very honorable criminal attorney, he had told me a story about what I'm going to learn, and we've heard this a few times, that you're going to think like a lawyer. There is a tremendous amount of truth to that when you look at all sides of a problem. He had a case of a multiple offense drunk driver, and he was trying to look at this, and I think most people looked at it and said, boy, this client, he's going away, there's a bad ending here. He looked at it a different way, and he was able to go back and look at some of the previous convictions, and there was flaws in those previous convictions. So what could have been a fourth or a fifth offense was really a second offense. And people may look at that, but he protected that individual's rights, and he looked at it a different way, and that really spoke to me.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.